Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. As you can see, we have an airbag light on. So I'm going to show you, this is a Renault Master, but that's kind of not the point in this video. I'm going to show you how to diagnose an airbag fault, driver's airbag fault or clock spring using the Hubitools test lead and their auto tester. So let's get cracking. Sorted. Now, first thing you need to do is plug your scan tool in and see exactly what code you've got. As you can see, we've got a driver's airbag. Now, that could be a few things. That could be the airbag unit itself. It could be the clock spring, or it could be the wires going from the clock spring to the actual computer. So it could be a few things. So we need to eliminate exactly which one it is so we get the right part, because clock springs, airbags, stuff like that, they're very, very expensive and you don't want to be getting the wrong part. First thing we're going to do, this is not going to be a how-to in a sense of how to strip everything. I'm going to take off the airbag and we're going to test the system, and then we're going to go from there. That's going to be the easiest way. I have done another video on how to test airbags, but this is not going to be how to strip this down. It's just going to be what test equipment to use. Okay, so first thing we need to do is select the right pins to put into our airbag system and to select the right adapter. We have two adapters in the kit here, and what's really good about this is you can put different resistors into it and you get some resistors with it. Now, if you're unsure, on each resistor is a band and they're different colors. You can get an app on your phone so you can put in the bands and you'll know what the resistance is. But if you're not sure and you don't want to do it that way, just get your tester, turn it on to ohms, and we'll test. Right, I'm just going to get the right resistor from here, and depend on your system, between 2.2 to 2.6, just kind of depends, but as long as you're in and around there, you should be okay. Once I got that set up, we'll see. So here we go, we got a 2.4 ohm resistor. As you can see, I'm just testing it on the ohm setting. So we know that's the one we need. I'm now going to simply, I'll try and do this while I'm actually on here, but I don't think I can because I'm in very tight space. Anyway, I can't do it. I'm going to put that inside there and then we'll continue. Okay, this is now my setup. As you can see, I've got my two pins and I've got my resistor on top. Just put the little cover back. And of course, I can't do it on camera. There we go, we got a little cover back. Now, I have done a video on how to test an airbag, and a lot of people, oh, you can't do it that way, you can't do it that way. And I proved you can do it that way because I'm still here. The airbag didn't blow up, so there you go. But if you are afraid of maybe going directly to the airbag, what you can do, so we know we've got a problem with our driver's airbag. We've now disconnected our airbag. Just imagine that as a big resistor. That's all you've got to imagine it as. We have now put our resistor in here. So this potentially or essentially becomes our airbag. So I should be able to connect this into here, turn the engine back on. If our light goes out or stays out, we then know we have a problem with our airbag and we need to get our airbag replaced. So I'm going to do that test first, and then if it doesn't, we're going to do a few more tests and see exactly what the problem is with this. Okay, so we've got it connected in. So like I said, this is pretending to be our airbag now, and if the system is happy, if the airbag light stays off, then you know you've got a problem. Well, you know then from here all the way back is okay. So then the only thing missing is the airbag, so there has to be a problem with the airbag. Now, so let's start this and see what happens. Airbag light's gone off, but just now come back on again. So that's just kind of be aware of that. Sometimes also, what a word. It's no harm to spin the wheel, because if it is the clock spring, there could be a bad section in the clock spring. So you might put this on and the airbag light goes off and you think, oh, that's great. No, spin the wheel left and right a few times just to make sure that airbag light doesn't come on. Now we now know that airbag is fine, because this is essentially our airbag. So we know we're okay from our airbag, but we need to go further in down. So the next thing I'm going to do is test the clock spring, and I'm going to have to take off the steering wheel for that, and it's only one bolt there because it's right in behind here and it's kind of awkward. So for sake of one bolt, let's take that off and see what's happening. sorted. Right, what you want to do is to make sure before you take the steering wheel off, make sure your wheels are straight. It's just a lot easier to get everything back lined up. Sometimes these can be really difficult to take off. This is nice and handy, just be careful of that. Now, here is our clock spring now, and on this one is really handy, there's a lock. So you can actually wedge this up if you was to take it off to stop it turning inside, because this has to turn inside, as you can see. And if you've got this set wrong, as you spin the wheel you can actually snap it inside. If it's turned too much to one side and then you turn it the other way, you can do damage, or you'll break it. So this is an actual lock under here, and as you can see now, it won't move. I release the lock and it moves. So that is very important to get that right. But what we need to do is we need to disconnect it down here, which again you just can't quite see. And then, is this loose or is it bolted? It'll be bolted somewhere. And then we can actually test the actual clock spring. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take out the wire behind the clock spring. I'm going to put my resistor in. If the light goes off, then we know that there is a problem internally in the clock spring, because we have tested from here all the way back and it hasn't worked. So if we test from here back, the only thing in the middle is the clock spring. So it really is as simple as that. Right, I've gone down a slightly different route because I didn't want to take all that off if I didn't have to, but it is kind of looking like the clock spring. I've disconnected the wire at the back, which goes into the clock spring. So I'm going to do the same thing again with this. So I'm going to put my resistor into this. If the light then goes off and stays off, then we know we've got a problem in the clock spring, and we know that the wiring from here all the way down is okay. Now if it doesn't go off, we then know we're going to have to trace a wire. It could be a module, it could be a broken wire, it could be loads of things. But these are the simple tests to do first. So let's hope the airbag light goes off, because this is just, it's expensive, but it's simpler and easier than trying to find a broken wire somewhere. So I'm going to set that up first and then turn the camera back on and see what the light does. So depending on your connection, you have loads of different wires to choose from. Get the right one, connect it in, and we're good to go. Now let's see what happens. So this essentially, this resistor now is being our airbag and our clock spring. It's taken both of them in one now. So turn the ignition on, airbag light comes on. Oh, hold on. Of course, I took that away because I was going to take everything off. So let's put that back on, because otherwise it won't start. Now the lights stop flashing, which is good. Light's gone off, airbag light's gone off, which is also good. Start it. And bingo. That has seemed to work. But what I'm going to do, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to turn this as if I was turning the steering wheel. But I'm going to remember how many times I've turned it, because I don't want to get this. It doesn't want to turn. That could be one thing. That doesn't want to turn for me. And it should. That's where it was. But that doesn't want to turn. But what am I doing? She was disconnected. What a tit. It's not going to make any difference. There we go, people. That is now in. Our airbag light is off. And there we go. It really is. Well, it's done. Simple. No more airbag light. I'm sure if I reset the system, well, we can do that. So let's just put the ignition on. So difficult to do this with one hand. Let's go back out. Let's go to erase fault. Ignition stopped. Enter. Yes. Now, done. If I go back up, read faults. No faults found. Let's just turn this back on. No more airbag light. Let's go back into it. Just be on the safe side. Read faults. There we go, people. And that's it. That's how to test an airbag system with the Hubitools set and auto tester. Now, if this doesn't work, if the light came on, you know you've got a problem, and this is where you're going to need wiring diagrams, and that's just a lot harder. But in this case, no, it's our clock spring. Sorted. Now, it is important to do both of these tests, because if you just do this, you don't know if it's your clock spring or your airbag. We did this one first, so we knew our airbag was okay. So it is important. Don't just go to here and just assume it's your clock spring, because it still could be your airbag. I have done another video on testing an airbag. I'll link that down below too. I'll link all these down below where you can get the Hubitool test kit from and the auto tester. And if you want to do one more test just to be 100% sure, let's just start this. What I'll do is I'll disconnect this from here, and the light should come back on, because the computer is going to think, oi, what you done? Where's my airbag? Oi! And there we go. So it's now recognized that it's, you know, it's like, well, what's going on here, people? Danger! So there we go. So we definitely know, we've tested it from here to here, so we know that our airbag is fine because our light was still on even though we connected our thing here. So we know somewhere from here internally in this clock spring there's a break, or there's a wear, there's a rub, there's a short, there's something internally in here, which normally does happen as these spin around. So there we go. So that's it. Now, this is kind of inside the clock spring. This was the wire I was telling you about, and as you can see, when this moves, you can see what it does. So it's constantly kind of screwing up and moving, but that constant moving and rubbing together eventually does wear them out and cause them to do all sorts. So that's essentially what it's doing inside, and that's why it's important to get this in the middle, because if you're two ways one side and you turn your wheel, you're going to snap this. So that's essentially what happens. Inside there somewhere is the short. Okay, new clock spring installed. Here is the old crappy one. For those along playing at home, here is the part number, genuine part. There you go. So what I've got to do now is just connect the airbag and test it. So I'm going to connect the airbag, just connect this part, not clip it in, just connect it and see what the story is. So let's go. Right, the airbag isn't properly in, it's just clipped. So let's turn the ignition on. First, let's just turn it on. Oh, the steering lock's up. There we go. Yeah, airbag light goes off. Let's just make sure it doesn't come back on just before we start it, which it doesn't. Wipers are on. No harm to just to check everything to make sure, because obviously, even though these are all old stock, but we moved them. Right, so spin the wheel. This is going to be awkward. Nothing yet. And there we go, people. Fix confirmed. Sorted! Sorted, no airbag light, sorted. Yes, there is other lights, but I was just asked to fix the airbag light. So there we go. Lovely. Right, what I'm going to do, just kind of for the end of the video, we're going to see if we can see some kind of damage in here. Now, this is the ribbon cable from the clock spring. I can't see any physical damage actually on the ribbon. There's nothing that stands out that's kind of obvious. So what I've done is I've got my right pins. So in other words, I've got my right adapters for my sets. And the reason why I've used these is because if you just stick the multimeter on, if you don't get it perfect, you can kind of get faults reading. These are good solid connections. They're not going to fall out. They're all clipped in properly. And it means it leaves my hands free. I can look at the meter and I can wiggle the actual cable. I don't have to touch the meter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on to continuity first. Now, normally I wouldn't test something like this with continuity. You do have to be careful with continuity. It can kind of lead you astray. Now, you can see that it's beeping, so we know we've got connection. So I'm just literally going to see if I can do anything with the connection. That track looked good. We've only got a single firing, let's just take that off. I've only got a single firing airbag, so I've only got one connection rather than two. So, oh, which one did I have it on? That one. All right, so swap these around. I want to use the proper cables. This is why a really good kit comes in handy, because again, I can leave my hands free. So let's kind of do the same thing again. Now, that's interesting. Nothing. Oh. We're getting something. Now, what did I do there? Now, off. On. So that was our problem. So obviously somewhere internally the cable kind of looks okay. Somewhere. Now what you do have to, let me just turn it off. What you do have to do when you're testing an airbag, you see these two little pins. When you pull out the connection, the pins pull out, and it essentially makes it safe. So you have to make sure them pins are pushed back. I've shown that in my other video a lot clearer. But I don't know if you can see, the camera's going to show that kind of locking pin there. When I push that down, it separates it, so it means I can test it. If you're trying to test it with that pin engaged, you're going to get completely false readings. Now, I don't like to test things like that with continuity. If I was doing it on the car, I wouldn't be doing it with continuity, just because if there is one wire on a thick cable connected, the continuity test will kind of bleep, and you might think it's okay, where an ohms reading is far much better. So we've now got 0 ohms on this cable, which we shouldn't have, obviously. And as you can see, as I move this and wiggle this, look at the ohms. I mean, that went to killer ohms for a second there. Now it's just completely open, over limit. Yeah, it's just, there's a complete open somewhere. Oh, see if we can get something. No, it's just all over the shop. I can't even get a proper reading. So this is where an ohms test comes in a lot better than, there we go, we've got a reading there, but just as I move the cable, it's just going all over the place. So there you can just see on the bad one, it is just all over the place. That should be a nice steady reading, and it's just all over the place. That's where a continuity test can kind of get you stuck. Now if the wire is completely and utterly broke, if I can get this to stop, for example, not going to do it now. Now there, then you're okay. But as you can see, this bleeps. So if you was to test this particular one with a continuity test, you're going to think, oh, that's okay, it's making a noise. But it depends how you grab it. And now it's not, yeah, it's kind of flicking. So that's where a continuity tester can kind of put you in the wrong places. Why I don't particularly like continuity testers. Ohms tester is a lot better. So that's it. That's going to kind of nicely wrap up the video. That's how to test an airbag system with the multimeter and with this test lead kit. On a modern car, the test lead kit is essential. It's essential. I can do all this. I'm not trying to hold connections in, you know, it's a proper connection. It's a proper connection on my multimeter, you know, it's making good connection. I'm not trying to hold this, and wiggle the wire at the same time. It's just too difficult. And if you try that, and you get the wrong piece, like this was very expensive, because you're trying to hold it and you think you've got the right test, you get a very expensive part and it's not needed, then, you know, this is where a test kit like this and a test lead set like this just comes in handy, you know. So I'll leave the links in the description where you can get these from. And yeah, so that'll hopefully show you how to test the system using this kit, using this meter, And there you go. So look, hope it helps. Thumbs up, subscribe, all the usual. Don't forget, links up here, links down below, but most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one. Sorted.